Hello, I'm Frank Costantino, the Chef Doctor. Today we're going to do something that I think is real important for a home cook or a young culinarian to know how to do, and that's caramelizing onions. Love onions, love the caramelized flavor onions, and love the versatility. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give you 3 different variations off of the caramelized onion. I'm going to do an onion crostini with some blue cheese. We're going to do an onion condiment with some apple that we're going to serve with a piece of pork. And we're going to do a French onion soup with the same caramelized onions. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Costantino.
The important lesson here today, I've got a preheated cast iron pan. I've got some onions, and we're going to go ahead and slice these onions for you. And when slicing the onion, it's important we want to slice with the grain, not against the grain. That's going to make a much nicer caramelized onion for us. And I'm using a combination here of white and red onions, right? So we're going to go ahead and slice nice and thin. Good sharp knife. Okay. Making sure we cut the cores out of the onions so that the onions layers don't stick together. We don't want big clumps of onion in there. And I'll put some red in here as well. And we're ready to get started with the caramelization process. Now, and I'm going to use some neutral oil here, just a little bit of canola oil right in my pan. Okay, you could use pure olive oil as well. This is just to get the caramelization process to begin for us. And adding my onions to the pan. And we're going to let the onions now sit in the pan and get some good color developing right at the beginning, okay? No seasoning at this point. And we're going to get those onions started with some color. And here, as I go, just a few drops of water just to get and lift that caramelization off the bottom of my pan. You can see the color comes right up, nice and brown. We're going to start on some of the elements that we're going to use for showcasing the caramelized onions today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut some crostini. And crostini are very simple crusts of bread. I'm going to cut these about 1/2 inch thick, nice and straight. I'll do 3 for one portion here. And for our crostini, we're going to do a very simple technique here. We're going to put down the crostini with some olive oil. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and a little bit of pepper. All right, this is good bread, nice baguette, but we want to make sure that it has good flavor, right? So we're going to pop these in the oven just to get a little bit toasted. So our crostini are in the oven. It's a good opportunity for us now to add a little bit more water to our onions. So here again, you hear that great sizzle from the water. And let's see and take a look at what we got here. And these are really starting to caramelize real nice here. Got a nice cast iron pan. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of oil to get things started here. We have a nice center cut boneless pork loin here. Again, I'm going to season this up real well with some good sea salt and some pepper. And again, both sides we season because we eat both sides, right? We want to make sure we got good seasoning on there. It also helps to form a nice crust on the pork. I'm going to get this pan nice and hot and get a good sear on that. So our croutons are getting nice and toasted. We want to make sure we get both sides here. Okay. And just crusted but not overly done, right? Pan is nice and hot for our pork. Let's go ahead and get a sear on there. So, caramelized onions. We have a lot of options here. We can make a large batch of these onions. We can store them in the refrigerator. We can take them out. They're great on burgers. That's a no-brainer. Great on a sandwich, Philly cheesesteak. If you want to have it as a condiment like that, it works out perfectly well. A lot of options here, right, with the onions. And they last in the refrigerator for a couple of weeks, right? Keep nice and airtight. And we'll put those on the side. Okay, so we have our onions going here, and they're still caramelizing in the background. I moved the pork up to the front because I want to start to do a little bit of poêlée technique. And if you've watched my video, Best Way to Cook Chicken, and I illustrate this poêlée technique of cooking with butter, we're going to apply the same technique to pork. And I mentioned that you could use other meats as well. It's a great way to cook pork. So I'm going to throw in a couple of cloves of garlic here. And what I'm doing with the garlic, I'm leaving the skins on, and I'm just tossing the garlic into the pan. And we're going to go ahead and put that whole butter in. Okay? And wait till I turn this pork over. Let's see what kind of color we have on the bottom. Okay, as I got that butter rolling in. Let's take a look and see what we have here. Oh, that looks real nice. Okay? And now we'll start that technique. Now, I'm leaving the skin on the garlic because I don't want the garlic to burn, right? The skin will kind of protect it. But because I smashed the garlic, I got that oil coming out, right, of the garlic to get some good flavor in here. And this is going to really cook real nice, that pork. Okay? We'll come back to that in a moment. Now, at this point, I'm going to add some salt, okay? And start the seasoning process. Now I've gauged how much these onions have reduced in the pan. If I start salting at the beginning, yeah, I'm going to draw some moisture out, and that's going to help in the caramelization process. But there's always that chance that I'm going to over-exaggerate on the seasoning because I have a lot of bulk, right? And then it cooks down like, oh, I think I might have put too much salt. So reserve the salt to the last moment with the pepper. I do the same thing when I'm cooking spinach, fresh spinach in a pan. I want to make sure that I'm not over-seasoning, so I wait for the spinach to wilt, and I add my final seasoning before I serve. Okay? Let's go ahead and season. Salt. And pepper. We're going to go ahead and place our pork in the oven for about 4 or 5 minutes just to make sure that it's fully cooked. I'm touching, I'm feeling it's about mid-rare. I want to go to medium on the pork. And we'll do another final basting before we finish it off. In the meantime, we're ready to taste our onions and make any final adjustments to them. So those are super sweet. They're tender, but they yield a little bit to bite, which is how I like them. All right? I'm going to add a little more salt here because I felt like there was a little bit of sweetness overbalancing the saltiness. Let's go ahead and put those in. Let's go ahead and make our first item with these beautiful onions. We're going to cut the fire on these now for a moment. Take some of the onion here. Very simple. And do our crostini. Okay. And my cheese of choice for this is a little bit of blue cheese crumbled, yeah? Let's just go ahead and lay that on top. So we'll get our blue cheese on top. This is a crumbled, actually a gorgonzola we're using, even better. And we're going to go ahead and pop this under the broiler for about 30 seconds. Okay, so our crostini are done, the caramelized onion, the blue cheese. I'm using a plate here, a wooden a maple plate that I made and used in my last webinar, my last live stream. Some of you saw me do a deconstructed Cobb salad on this. We're going to use this again for this particular dish because I think it's really going to bring a nice look to the plate here. The food is not terribly hot. It's warm. The crust on top is nice and warm. I have a little bit of micro cilantro here, which I'm going to put on top, which I think is going to add a nice bite to the crostini. And this is our first presentation with our caramelized onion. Okay, let's go ahead and get that pork. This looks really nice here. Let's go ahead and give it a couple more hits, a couple more bastes here with that butter, a little poêlée. Now you can really smell the wonderfulness of that. We're going to let the pork rest a little bit while we go ahead and finish up these onions. Okay? So I'm going to take the garlic out of the pan. I'm going to spill out most of this fat. going to go into the pan now with some very thinly sliced apples. And here we just want to take these down so they soften real quick. This is a golden delicious apple. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and put this in the pan with our fat and all that flavor that we had from the pork. Okay, I'm going to break it up a little bit here because we're actually making a relish with this apple. You can see immediately it's picking up the caramelization. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let that tenderize a little bit. It doesn't take long on the apple. Got the added bonus of that flavor from the pork. And we're going to go ahead now and add some of our caramelized onions to this apple mixture and turn it into a condiment for the pork. Okay? To pick up on the flavor of the apple, we're going to use a little bit of Applejack. And this is a local Applejack made in Orange County, New York, called Black Dirt Apple Brandy. So we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of that in. Hot. And let's flame that. Let's get ourselves a nice plate. And the smell of that apple brandy comes off so nice off these off of this mixture here. Here's our pork. Center plate. I'm going to go ahead and get our apple and caramelized onion compote here on top. And courtesy of our friends from Flavor Fields, we have these beautiful apple blossoms here that we're going to use to garnish our plate. And now we're going to finish up with a French onion soup built off of the same caramelized onions. Okay, so we have our remainder of our onions here. Okay, I have a really nice beef stock here that we made. And typically with our French onion soups, we'd start with the same process, right? We'd start caramelizing the onion. We'd add some sweet sherry or something along those lines to get out some natural, enhance the sweetness of the onion. And then we'd add that to the brown stock. So here what we're going to do, same technique, we're going to use the same caramelized onion. Okay, we're going to get these nice and hot, and I'm going to go ahead and use that same Applejack that we use. I think the flavor of the apple and the onion is so harmonious, right? Just a little deglaze here and flambe. Now, we don't want to lose any of the wonderful foam that's in the bottom here, so we're going to go ahead and put our beef stock right in. Get that pan good and clean. So we have the French onion soup crock, which I'm going to fill with my French onion soup. Going to take our crouton, float that on the top. And I know their classic is Gruyere on the French onion soup, but I'm using a little bit of provolone here. I like the flavor of the provolone. We're going to go ahead and put this right into the oven. Okay, so I think that French onion soup is done. We call this gratine, right? The cheese on top, and get nice color under the salamander, under the broiler. Let's see what we got here. You can still smell that apple from the brandy coming off of that. And there you have our French onion soup, gratine. So I hope you enjoyed that caramelized onion technique. We did 3 different things with the caramelized onions today. I hope you're going to try this at home. Until next time, I'm Frank Costantino, the Chef Doctor. Thank you very much.